All right, today we'll be subtracting rational numbers. Now, when they throw a subtraction sign in there, it can get kind of messy. So I color-coded your worksheet today in order to talk about how we're going to do these problems. So let's start with what you already know, subtracting fractions. So we know that we cannot subtract these yet because they do not have the same denominator on number 16. So I have to make sure they have the same denominator. So I know that 3 goes in 6 two times. So I'm going to multiply this one by 2 and multiply this one by 2. And 3 times 2 is 6. And 1 times 2 is 2. So my new fraction is 2 6. So I know that 2 minus 1 is 1. And I leave my denominator the same. And they want us to put this in lowest terms. And I know that 1, if my top number is a 1, it is in lowest terms. So you only have one other orange problem because this is something that we did last year, and that's number 4. So our second example is pretty similar, but I want to explain it to you because all these numbers can be really confusing. We're going to add all of these. So what this is saying is that, remember when we drew last week when we said that I'm 3/5 feet underwater or under the ground? And now I'm going to go down another 4/5. So I'm already down and I'm going down. So that means I'm going further down. So I'm going to add these two numbers together. My denominator is already the same. So I'm going to bring that over. And now I'm going to really, because the symbols are the same, I'm going to add them. 3 plus 4 is 7. That's a -7. But we cannot just stop there. We got to fix this mess because they want it in simplest form. So I know that 5 goes into 7 one time, and I bring my negative sign over. So I have a negative. I bring my denominator over. So like I said, 5 goes into 7 one time with 2 left over. So my answer is -1 2/5. So when we have, again, the negative number here, the negative number here, and nothing here, or we could assume it's positive, we're going to add those and keep sign. I'm going to keep the sign. So our third example is another adding example. But now we have these two negatives right here. And really, we're going to talk about this tomorrow, that there's a secret 1 right here and a multiplication sign. So we're multiplying a negative times a negative, which makes it a positive. But again, we're going to get into that tomorrow. So what I want you to notice is that when we have those two negative signs, then I'm going to change it to a giant positive. I'm trying to hide that negative. There you go. So I'm going to change it to a giant positive. So now we're just adding fractions, which is something that you guys had mastered last spring. So again, now I got to make sure I have the same denominator. That's 8, and I do. And now I add this. 2 plus 1 is 3. So whenever you see any of the problems with blue, just change those two negative signs, and we're going to change that to a positive sign. So it just becomes adding the fraction. Now our last example is where everything has a negative sign. So we're going to go back and do what we did with example 3. And we're going to change this sign to a positive. And now we're doing what we were doing last week when we have different signs. Now, when we have different signs, because now I have a negative sign and a positive sign, that tells me I have to subtract those numbers. And I'm going to keep the sign of the bigger number. Wow, that's a lot. So negative sign, positive sign, subtract. And I'm going to keep the sign of the bigger number. So now I have to subtract these. Great. You guys are really good at subtraction. So I know I'm subtracting my whole numbers first, and that gives me 2 minus 1, which is 1. That's easy. My denominators are the same. Hooray! So I just bring that over. And now I have 1 minus 1, which is 0. Well, I don't have 0 fourths. Those go away. So I'm just going to erase those. So my answer is 1. And I keep my sign so it's a positive 1. So those are all the ones in green. I'm going to try to do 15 with you because 15 is the hardest one of them. Again, we're going to, because I see these two signs right here, I'm going to change that to a giant plus sign. And now I know I have a negative sign and a positive sign, so I have to subtract. I might even write that here so that my brain knows I have to subtract. The next piece, do I have the same denominators? And the answer is no. Oh man, now I got more work to do. Well, let's change these denominators. I know that 2 goes into 8 4 times, so I'm going to multiply this by 4. And if I do it to the bottom, I have to do it to the top. So I'm going to get my new fraction as 4 over 8. Great. Now I can subtract it. So I know my denominator is going to be 8. And now I'm going to go 4 minus 3 is 1. And I keep the sign of my bigger fraction, so 4 eighths is bigger than 3 eighths, so it's a positive 1 eighth. I would really like you guys to try to do numbers basically 1 through 14 on your own. If you guys have questions, go ahead and come to our Zoom meeting and ask them.